In the name of the holy and undivided Trinity, one God, forever and ever. Amen. If you are at all like me, you need a vacation. It's sort of been nonstop since March, with rarely a minute to breathe, hasn't it? For me, that's frequently meant 12-hour days. When I'm stuck at home, the temptation is to work all the time. I've worked hard over the years to make boundaries between work life and home life, but I confess that this pandemic has blurred those boundaries in unexpected ways for me. I suspect it has been this way for many of us. We need a vacation, don't we? And yet the virus has taken away many options for vacation this year. I was to be in Spain this week receiving pilgrims as they entered Santiago de Compostela from the Camino. I was to celebrate the Eucharist and help pilgrims process their experience of the Camino. That's definitely my cup of tea. My wife and kids were to experience Spain for the first time. And we were going to get away, and yet all of that was canceled. They're disappointed not to be afforded the opportunity. We're ready for next year in Santiago. Our plans have changed, and we're ready for a vacation. In today's gospel, Jesus needs a vacation. In Galilean cities, he has experienced rejection. In great fatigue and desperation, Jesus blows his top. To what shall I compare this generation? You're like a bunch of children. It's almost like he's yelling at the folks who refuse to wear a mask. I'm not sure about you, but my patience is wearing a bit thin of late. Jesus tells all of those cities who rejected him that on the judgment day, when God finally gives them what they deserve, it will be no better for them than it was for Sodom. It wasn't one of Jesus' better moments, I have to say. But he was tired. He was tired of rejection, exhausted by hard work without results. He was dog-tired, dead-tired. Jesus needs a break. Time to unburden, a vacation. It's right here that this morning's gospel begins. At that time, Jesus declared. At that time, right after he reveals his own deep exhaustion. I thank you, Father, that you have hidden these things from the wise and understanding and have revealed them to babes. Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take your yoke upon you, and learn from me, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. No wonder these are some of Jesus' most beloved words. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden. Here's an invitation to a vacation, a Sabbath, a sabbatical in the deepest sense of the word. And even the most invigorated life of a professor, for example, there comes that day when your noble career in teaching means just one more lecture. Our interesting job in sales means one more dingy airport. About 3 p.m, when your dedication to the joys of motherhood is reduced to feelings that you would do anything just to have a few minutes away from your kids. You feel you will die with one more email to send, one more day officing at home, one more dish to be washed, one more meal to cook, one more day cooped up It gets old. Burnout is the accepted social disease of our age. Sometimes, too, religion is a burden. Going to church, reading the Bible, praying the offices can become tiresome, no more than a duty, a habit kept going by inertia rather than by commitment. Of course, I've been known to pray, Lord, help me through another Holy Week. Oh, it's Christmas again. 4 services in a week. Well, let's get it over with. Oh, it's Holy Week? 10 services and 7 sermons in 8 days, huh? Christmas, Easter. I think this is probably the burden of which Jesus was speaking. Jesus later complained about how religious leaders placed heavy burdens on people's backs and wouldn't lift a finger to remove them. The blessing of religion can easily become a burden. Religion reduced to should and ought and must, a series of heavy, impossible commands. There are those who spend their whole lives getting over the damage done by religion. Now, in the very next episode in Matthew's Gospel, Jesus' disciples walk through a grain field one fine Sabbath day, and they are hungry, so they pluck some grain and they eat it. And look, cried his critics, your disciples are doing what is unlawful to do on the Sabbath day. Jesus replies that they have perverted religion. God desires mercy, not sacrifice. And you can, no doubt, think of many other examples of the way that Jesus unburdened people from oppressive religion. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take your yoke upon me and learn from me. Now wait a minute, Jesus. Did you just say yoke? Is Jesus joking? Jesus offers tired, burdened people what they seem least to need. What labored, heavy-laden folk need is a vacation, not a yoke. A yoke is a work instrument. It is used to help oxen pull together. Now, Jesus' yoke may be easy and his burden may be light, but a yoke is still a yoke, and a burden is still a burden. Just when we expect Jesus to offer us a vacation, he offers us a very different yoke from the ones around our necks, a new burden from the one we are currently bearing. Instead of escape, Jesus offers tired people new equipment, a burden, a yoke. Whatever the deliverance that Jesus offers, it is not deliverance from responsibility and accountability. Luther noted that only Jesus could say, "Come to me, all you who are heavy laden," in one breath, and then say, "I'll place a yoke around your necks," in the next. Perhaps Jesus dares to speak of giving us rest by placing his burden upon us because Jesus knows that the issue in life is not if we shall be burdened, but rather which burdens we shall bear. As a priest, I have spent much time providing comfort to people who were cracking under the burden of affluence. 2 cars, the big mortgage. How many of our emotional and physical illnesses are due to stress brought on by overextension? Honey, the dishwasher isn't working. Oh, by the way, the hot water heater is on the blink. Wait here until the garage door repairman calls. There are weeks when we appear to be the victims of a revolt of appliances and gadgets. We bought all this stuff to set us free, to unburden our lives. And how ironic it is that we end up servicing our machines rather than our machines serving us. I wait for the plumber to arrive, and therefore I am. Take my 10 years of installment payments upon you, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. The vast personal and social burden of our methods of unburdening has become a great burden in and of itself. We have a national drug problem, and we are told that people take drugs to take away some of the pain of living, and that makes sense. And that the most abused drug is neither cocaine or methamphetamine, but rather prescription drugs, and the greatest number of drug-dependent persons are actually middle class and middle-aged. And yet our prisons are filled with poor people of color convicted on minor drug offenses. We have a great deal of pain to be unburdened from out there. How heavy a burden life must be to take on our backs the burdens of drugs rather than bear the burden that life has put on us. Life's greatest burden is not in having too much to do. Some of the happiest people I know are the busiest. But in having nothing worthwhile to do. Energy, I think, is a renewable resource. Good work appears to produce more energy to do more good work. People burn out from what I observe, not because they have too much to do, but because they have become exhausted by constant engagement with the trivial and the inconsequential. So the issue before us cannot be if we shall be burdened, but to what shall we be burdened? Not if we shall be yoked, but to whom? Jesus appears to have no interest in unburdening us so that we can be free or self-esteemed or all of those other modern infatuations which are themselves such debilitating burdens in and of themselves. Jesus lifts one burden off of our backs so that he can place another. He removes the harness that we forge for ourselves so that he can place around our necks his own yoke. Jesus' idea of a good vacation is not getting away from it all, but taking us someplace where we are given something significant to do, namely participation with him in his ministry to the world. Hymn writer George Matheson was born in Glasgow in the year 1842, and although he was blind, he graduated with honors from the University of Edinburgh. He was a prolific hymn writer, and he wrote several that are not in our hymnal, but one in particular that I think is particularly important. And it includes these words: "Make me a captive, Lord, and then I shall be free. Force me to render up my sword, and I shall a conqueror be. I sink in life's alarms when by myself I stand. Imprison me within thine arms, and strong shall be my hand. Make me a captive, Lord, and then I shall be free." If there was ever an anti-American hymn in the history of the world, it might be that one. We Americans talk a lot about freedom. This weekend we celebrate our independence from colonial England, But I wonder if the freedom and independence now celebrated by many people looks more like freedom from the burden of caring about anyone else. Many Americans of late don't seem to want to make sacrifices for anyone else. Sometimes Americans seem to be a collection of indifferent and disinterested individuals with the freedom to tell others that they do not matter. The ugliest form of this is just plain narcissism and absolute indifference at the life and well-being of others. Some Americans get angry when people kneel and protest at the national anthem instead of being angry at the violence visited on their neighbor of color. Some Americans get angry and rage and scream when asked to wear masks to protect the lives of others and turn their anger at the weight of life in a pandemic onto those who are wearing masks, those who make a commitment to protect themselves and others. For the sake of having a prom or a party or some other sentimental or Epicurean maskless gathering, they end up killing others instead of killing the virus in their indifference. But dear ones, followers of Jesus, we who are made citizens of God's kingdom at holy baptism are called to another way. Followers of Jesus know that they do not do this alone. Followers of Jesus must learn that the burden of this faith, the burden of living as a citizen of God's kingdom, is caring about others, is laying down your life for others, is respecting the dignity of others, is seeking and serving Christ in others, is loving others as you love yourself, is striving for justice and peace among all people, is having empathy for the plight of others and committing to work for a just society. It may feel difficult, but this yoke is easier than hyper-narcissistic individualism. It may feel heavy at times, but this burden is surely lighter. Oh, there is so much more to bear than indifference. And yet following this way of Jesus is a life so much more worth living than deadly indifference. Dear ones, I pray for you. I pray for each of you, wherever you are today, wherever you are watching from on this hot July day, on this 4th of July weekend, when in normal times many of us would be on vacation. I pray for you not that Jesus will deliver you from all burdens and free you from all yokes, but I am thankful that Jesus, the Lord of heaven and earth, has given us a burden worth bearing, a yoke worth wearing, a way worth following, a rule of life worth living. Make me a captive, Lord. Then I shall be truly free. Amen.